9 hours on the operating table. I woke up to 73 missed calls. My throat was raw. My spine was in a brace I couldn't feel yet. And on the tray table, one voicemail was waiting. I pressed play with a hand that barely worked. Honey, don't be upset. We sold your condo to pay for your sister's wedding. You were out cold, so we signed for you. It's handled. Handled. My home. Gone. While a machine was breathing for me. The wedding was 3 weeks away. I could barely lift my arm. But I made one phone call. And what happened next was not the thing they planned for. If you've ever been called the strong one right before someone used you, comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Nurse Angela checked my vitals. Surgery went well. 3 levels fused. I asked her to replay the voicemail. Maybe the anesthesia was playing tricks. It wasn't. My father's voice was calm. Cheerful. The voice of a man who's already decided you'll forgive him. I am a surgical nurse. I do not panic in the first 10 seconds. I assess. Someone put my name on a legal document while I was unconscious in this building. That was not a misunderstanding. That was a crime wearing a family smile. Nurse Angela, I said, voice like gravel, I need my anesthesia record. Every timestamp. She blinked like I was confused. I wasn't confused. I was building a case before I even knew there was one. Because whoever forged my signature did it while a surgeon's hands were inside my open spine, and I was about to prove it, minute by minute. That condo wasn't square footage. It was 6 years of my life. I bought it at 28, 2 years after my second deployment as an army medic. The bank almost laughed me out of the room. I put down every dollar I had. They handed me a key to a 3rd-floor unit with a view of a parking lot. I cried on that empty floor the first night. I didn't even own a chair yet. 6 years of double shifts. 6 years of saying no to vacations. By the time I went into surgery, I had $300,000 of equity in those walls. That number wasn't greed. It was every early morning I traded for a door no one could tell me to walk through. My family knew exactly what that condo meant. 4 months earlier, my father half-joked about borrowing against it for Emily's wedding. I said no. Flat. No hesitation. I thought that was the end of it. I've learned since, for some people, no is just the opening offer. So I did 3 things. I told my father plainly the condo wasn't anyone's budget but mine. I called my bank and flagged my accounts. And I dug up an old power of attorney I'd signed before a deployment, naming him in case I was ever unreachable overseas. I had never cancelled it. 2 days before surgery, I revoked it in writing. Handed it to my father across his own kitchen table. Just cleaning up old paperwork, I said. He nodded. Set it by the fruit bowl. I felt safe. I felt covered. That is the cruelest part of this whole story, the small clean feeling of protecting yourself, right before you find out the power you killed somehow rose from the dead. They discharged me 4 days later. Fusion looked solid on the films. Pain controlled. Already shuffling with a walker. Once you can walk, insurance wants the bed back. The problem hit me in the wheelchair, at the curb. I had nowhere to go. My condo, the recovery bed I'd set up, the bathroom rails I installed myself, technically belonged to someone else now. I couldn't drive. I was in a brace from hips to shoulder blades. So I called Renee. My friend since nursing orientation, 12 years ago. The kind of friend who shows up with a cooler and a folding cot. She drove me to a beige short-term rental that smelled like other people's vacations. While she made me soup, I opened a fresh notebook. The army taught me, when everything's chaos, you make a list, and you work the list. Page 1. Dates. Surgery date. Voicemail date. The date they claim I signed. Who are you calling first? Renee asked. Your mom? I shook my head. The first call wasn't going to family. It was going to a real estate attorney, and his first 3 questions were about to blow this case wide open. I called Mr. Hale the next morning, propped on 3 pillows. I told him everything in the flat voice I use for handoff reports. He asked 3 questions. Was there ever a power of attorney naming your father? Yes. An old one. Did you revoke it? Yes. 2 days before surgery. In writing. Then who is the buyer? Whose name is on the new deed? I didn't know yet. He said something I wrote down word for word. If that deed was signed under authority you'd already revoked, it may not be worth the paper it's printed on. But nobody hands you that. You have to prove it, step by step. I underlined one question so hard the pen tore the page. Who is the buyer? Because somebody had paid for my home, and I intended to find out exactly who, and exactly what they knew. That afternoon, my parents showed up. My mother with grocery store flowers. My father hanging back, wearing his wounded but reasonable face. We have been worried sick, my mother said. You called 3 times after the surgery, I said. Not before. Then she said the line I will hear in my sleep forever. Honey, it's just a condo. Your sister only gets married once. My father added his own. You were always the strong one, Claire. We knew you'd understand. I asked one calm question. Who notarized my signature? My father looked at the carpet. It was all handled properly. Then he made his first mistake. Walter took care of the paperwork end of it. One name. And I circled it in my notebook like a target. Before they left, my mother delivered her real weapon, dressed as concern. The money's already moving. Deposits are down. If you do anything rash, you'll ruin your sister's wedding. 3 weeks, Claire. 3 weeks and it's done. They thought the clock was on their side. They were wrong. 3 weeks wasn't their advantage. It was my window. Mr. Hale pulled the recorded documents within 2 days. Renee held my laptop steady because sitting up still made my back scream. There it was. The buyer's name in plain black letters. Walter Reeves. My father's business partner of 20 years. A man who came to our Thanksgivings. Price. $300,000. Cash. My father's voicemail said $425,000. He'd sold my home for $125,000 less than he claimed, and pocketed the difference to cover a debt to his own partner. Mr. Hale said it plainly. An all-cash deal, well under market, to a close associate of the man holding the power of attorney. That's not a red flag. That's a parade of them. Then he checked the signature. Mine has a hard downstroke. This one was round. Careful. Like someone tracing what they thought my name looked like. Close enough to fool a stranger. Not close enough to fool me. But it was the notary block that stopped my breath completely, because it listed the exact minute I supposedly signed my name away. The notary journal came back with a time. 1:47 in the afternoon. On the day of my surgery, at that exact minute, a notary swore that I stood in front of her, of sound mind, and signed away my home. I knew roughly where I was then. But roughly wouldn't hold up in court. I needed it nailed to the minute, in writing, on hospital letterhead. My medical records arrived in a thick envelope. An anesthesia record is a beautiful alibi. Every minute logged by law. Intubation, 11:02 in the morning. At 1:45 in the afternoon, stable rhythm, surgeon mid-procedure, second fusion level. At 1:50, the same. At 1:47 in the afternoon, the exact minute a notary swore I stood before her, I was face down on an operating table, a tube in my throat, another human being's hands inside my open spine. There is no version of that story where it's true. Mr. Hale got excited in the careful way lawyers do. That's about as airtight as an alibi gets. It proves you didn't sign it. But to collapse the whole deed, we still need one thing, the revocation. The paper proving the power they used was already dead. I closed my eyes. Because that paper, my only proof, was locked inside a file box, in a closet, in the very home they'd stolen from me. My sister called, pitched somewhere between apology and accusation. "Why are you making this about you right now?" I let the silence stretch. Guilty people fill silence. She admitted she never asked whose money paid for her venue. She just assumed it was handled. That word again. The family's favorite word for a thing they did to me. I told her I loved her. Then I hung up before my voice could crack. Renee drove me to Walter's office. I walked in on a cane, braced stiff under my coat. "You bought my condo," I said. "Your father had authority," Walter said, spreading his hands. "Cash. Clean. Recorded. You bought a $425,000 home for $300,000. From a man whose daughter was unconscious in surgery." He didn't flinch. "Your dad and I go back 30 years. He owed me. This squares us." Owed me. This squares us. There it was. My home hadn't paid for a wedding. It paid off my father's debt, with a flower arrangement thrown on top for cover. Walter leaned back, comfortable. "I'd let this go if I were you. Good luck proving anything from a hospital bed." I smiled. The small calm smile I give patients right before delivering news they won't like. "I've worked from worse positions than this bed. You'd be surprised what I can prove flat on my back." Here's what none of them knew. The night I revoked that power of attorney, some quiet instinct made me photograph every page on my phone before I handed the original to my father. Timestamped. Backed up to the cloud. Sitting in my email, untouched, the whole time. I never needed the file box. I never needed the closet. I had it in my pocket. The deed didn't just look weak. It collapsed completely. A judge voided the sale in a single hearing. Walter got his $300,000 back, from my father, not from me. My condo returned to my name, clean. The wedding happened anyway. I wasn't there. My mother texted, "It's just a condo, and now it's just a wedding. We can move on." I never replied. Because here's the twist they never saw coming. I didn't fight for the money. I fought for the proof that I existed as more than a resource to be spent. The lesson. People will call you the strong one right up until the moment they need something you have, and then that title becomes the excuse for taking it. Strength was never the problem. Silence was. The day I started writing things down instead of swallowing them, I stopped being an easy signature to forge. I kept the condo. I lost the family dinners. I'd make that trade again every single time. If you've ever been the strong one who finally stopped bending, drop strong one in the comments, and subscribe, because next week's story is even darker.